Believe it or not, there is probably less consensus among public policy scholars as to how to define public policy and as to what qualifies as public policy than there is among introductory government students. Volumes of policy literature have been generated over the last 30 to 40 years, but experts are still immersed in debate over some of the most fundamental considerations. Though the 5 characteristics of public policy that follow are not the final and definitive words on the subject, it is hoped that they promote greater understanding of public policy. A public policy is characterized by 5 important qualities. First, public policy consists of courses of action rather than mere decisions. To be more precise, a public policy has 2 components: decision and subsequent action. Both decision and action must be discernible to constitute public policy. A decision alone is not adequate. This assertion is a point of great debate among public policy scholars, but is exceedingly important to establish as a criterion for our purposes. To illustrate, let's explore a previously mentioned example of a private matter in greater detail. Our old friend John Holcomb takes a sick day from his job to stay home and watch a Dr. Phil special he recorded on his TiVo. Upon the conclusion of the program, he blots dry the tears swelling up in his eyes and looks in disgust at himself in the mirror, acknowledging that his pattern of misleading friends, deliberately omitting relevant information in his dealings with his customers, employer, and co-workers, and outright lying to family members is destructive to both himself and those around him. He decides in that moment to never lie again. He vows that it will be his policy forevermore to tell the truth. He then goes to bed and sleeps comfortably, confident that he has resolved a significant impediment to his interpersonal relations. However, the next morning, upon waking from his blissful slumber, he proceeds to lie to every person he encounters. He lies to his wife about what he had for lunch the previous day. He lies to his boss about why he was late for work. He lies to the departmental secretary about not knowing who left the coffee pot on after the last cup had been poured. Holcomb may have decided to tell the truth, but his course of action indicates his actual policy. When he made his vow, his intentions may have been sincere, but it remains that his policy is to lie rather than to tell the truth. Clearly, Holcomb must decide in each instance to lie rather than to tell the truth, unless he has a pathological condition. But the point is that he did not implement his decision to tell the truth with truth-telling behavior. Admittedly, this silly hypothetical appears to have nothing to do with our discussion of public policy. So let's consider a more appropriate hypothetical. Suppose the President of the United States publicly announces that it will be the policy of his administration to, quote, never ever, over my dead body, make deals with terrorists or countries that sponsor terrorist activities, unquote. He further vows that his administration, as a matter of policy, will never negotiate with terrorists for the release of hostages or make any concessions to any groups that undertake terrorist violence as a means to advance their political agenda. The President's decision is well received by the general public, and when the time comes for the President to stand for re-election, he wins in a landslide. Pundits widely agree that his smashing victory is mainly attributable to his tough stand against terrorism. 2 years into his second term, however, the press uncovers a pattern of behavior dating back to the President's first year in office, in which the White House had traded armaments to the ruling clerics of a Middle Eastern Islamic theocracy in exchange for their assistance in securing the release of American and other Western hostages being held by militants. Despite the President's public declaration of a tough, no-deals-with-terrorists policy, the course of action followed by the White House was quite the opposite. The actual policy was to deal with terrorists, or at least countries that harbor or sponsor terrorists. Is it being suggested that sometimes government publicly decides to do one thing and then proceeds to do another? Of course. This is not to say that the government never has a legitimate reason to pursue a policy that is inconsistent with or even in direct contravention to its publicly stated decisions. Defensible or not, however, the fact remains that the policy is indicated by the course of action rather than the publicly stated decision.